Emily had always thought life was predictable. She loved the steady rhythm of her days in her quiet Vermont suburb, the comfort of her marriage to Daniel, and the familiar routines they shared. Mornings were gentle, filled with the smell of fresh coffee and the sound of birds outside the window. Evenings were soft and calm, with Daniel reading in one chair and Emily curled up with a book in the other. It was a life she cherished, a life that felt safe, grounded, and unchanging. That was until Daniel's younger brother, Alex, arrived for a weekend visit. Alex was the opposite of steady. He had always been charming, spontaneous, and full of energy, a whirlwind of humor and adventure that could light up any room. Emily had enjoyed his company before, but she had never noticed how much depth lay beneath his carefree demeanor. This time, he seemed different. His usual grin was there, but his eyes held a seriousness she hadn't seen before. Something about his presence made Emily's heart beat a little faster. A mixture of curiosity and unease she couldn't ignore. The first evening of Alex's visit was quiet. The three of them had finished dinner, dishes were cleared, and the living room was dimly lit by the soft glow of lamps. Emily was settling onto the couch when Alex shifted closer and said quietly, "Emily, I have a wish. It's going to sound strange, but I need to tell someone." Emily froze. She wasn't sure if she should laugh, be concerned, or simply ask him to explain. "A wish," she asked carefully. "What kind of wish?" Alex took a deep breath, his hands resting on his knees. "It's about feeling alive again," he said. "I've been stuck watching life pass me by. I realized you have this way of making people feel seen, cared for, like life has color again. I want to feel that even just for a day." Emily blinked. She loved Daniel, her husband, and she had built a comfortable life with him. Yet Alex's words stirred something unexpected in her, a mixture of curiosity, empathy, and unease. She tried to smile politely, unsure how to respond. "Alex, I don't understand." "You want me to?" "What exactly?" "It's not what you think," he said quickly. "I'm not asking for anything inappropriate. I just want to understand what it's like to feel that kind of connection, warmth, or comfort. I trust you." I needed to tell someone who could listen without judging. Emily felt a rush of emotion she hadn't anticipated. His words were innocent, but they carried a weight, a raw honesty that touched her deeply. She wanted to reassure him, to brush it off, but she couldn't deny the pull she felt toward this moment. Toward the vulnerability Alex had revealed. He wasn't being flirtatious or manipulative. He was simply opening his heart in a way that made her heart race. Over the next few days, Emily couldn't stop thinking about Alex's wish. She noticed small things about him that she had overlooked before: the way he lingered on moments, the quiet way he observed life, the subtle sadness behind his laughter. Even when Daniel was nearby, she felt her mind drifting to Alex, wondering what he was thinking, feeling, or longing for. It was a confusing mix of admiration, curiosity, and an unexpected emotional pull. One rainy afternoon, Emily found herself alone with Alex in the kitchen, preparing dinner. Rain tapped against the windows, adding a soft rhythm to the quiet house. They moved around each other naturally, chopping vegetables and stirring pots. The air filled with the smell of garlic and rosemary. It was a simple, everyday moment, yet there was tension in it. A quiet intimacy that Emily hadn't expected. "You've changed," Alex said suddenly, his voice low and thoughtful. "Not just older. You've grown into someone remarkable. People trust you. They feel safe around you. I've always noticed that about you." Emily's chest tightened. "Alex, you're confusing me," she admitted. "I love Daniel. You know that? I can't." She left the sentence unfinished because even saying it aloud felt fragile. "Okay, not a way, not like..." "I know," Alex replied immediately. "I'm not trying to come between you and Daniel. I'm just sharing something I've never shared before. I needed someone to understand, someone I trust." "You're that person, Emily. I just wanted to be honest." Emily nodded, caught between relief and unease. She appreciated his honesty, yet the emotional intensity in the room made her pulse quicken. It wasn't about romance, at least not in the way her mind normally understood it. but it was about feeling truly seen, being close to someone in a deep, emotional way. It was unexpected, unsettling, and oddly thrilling as the evening went on. Emily couldn't shake the awareness that something had shifted. The ordinary, predictable life she had built with Daniel now felt fragile. Alex's presence, his words, and his vulnerability had created a new current in her carefully ordered world. She loved her husband deeply, but she realized that human emotions were unpredictable, capable of stirring even the most grounded hearts. That night, Emily lay in bed beside Daniel, listening to his steady breathing. She felt the warmth of his hand on hers, a comfort she had always relied on. And yet her thoughts drifted to Alex, the way he had looked at her, the sincerity in his voice, the way he had dared to share his longing. She knew that she could choose to ignore it, bury the feelings under routine and safety, or she could allow herself to acknowledge them, to see what lessons this emotional turbulence might bring. Emily's heart raced as she contemplated the strange complexity of human connections. Alex's visit, his words, and the honesty he had shown were not about betrayal, they were about vulnerability, longing, and the quiet human desire to be seen and understood. She realized that even the most innocent emotional confessions could shake the foundations of a life built on routine and predictability. The rain continued softly outside, a gentle backdrop to the storm inside Emily's mind. Life had been predictable, calm, and safe. But now the horizon felt wider, uncertain. She couldn't go back to the way things were before, not completely. Something had shifted, a possibility had been opened. A door she hadn't noticed was there. Emily closed her eyes, feeling a mixture of fear, excitement, and anticipation. She didn't yet understand how this weekend, this visit, or Alex's wish would change her life, but she knew it would. A single honest confession, whispered in a quiet living room, had the power to challenge her heart, make her question what connection and intimacy truly meant, and push her to reconsider the boundaries of love, loyalty, and emotional closeness. And as she drifted to sleep, Emily realized that sometimes even the most ordinary lives could be disrupted by a simple wish, and that disruption could be both frightening and beautiful. The weekend with Alex continued, and Emily could feel the subtle tension growing. Though it was not dangerous or inappropriate, it was an emotional tension, a strange kind of intimacy that made her feel alive in ways she hadn't in years. Every time Alex laughed, every time he shared a story, there was a warmth in the room that made Emily's chest tighten. She loved Daniel dearly, but Alex's presence stirred something she couldn't easily explain, an emotional pull, a curiosity about life, feelings, and human connections that she had forgotten existed. It was Saturday morning when the shift became impossible to ignore. Daniel had gone for an early hike with a friend, leaving Emily and Alex in the quiet house. The sun filtered through the windows, warm and golden, making the kitchen feel cozy. They were preparing breakfast together, meanly flipping pancakes, Alex chopping fruit. And the casual domesticity of the moment made the emotional intensity between them even more pronounced. "You're good at this," Alex said softly, watching her flip a pancake with effortless skill. "I've always admired how you handle everything, Emily. Calm/steady. Caring, it's not just about cooking or cleaning. It's the way you make people feel comfortable, seen. I don't think I've ever met anyone like you." Emily's hand froze for a moment, her heart skipping. "Alex, you're making it very hard for me to ignore the way I feel," she admitted quietly. "I know it's just emotional, but it's strong, and I can't explain it." Alex looked down, a little embarrassed, then met her eyes again with a vulnerability she hadn't expected. "I don't expect anything from you," he said gently. "I just needed to be honest. I've spent so long feeling restless, disconnected. Being around you, it's like a window opened. I see things differently. I see myself differently." Emily's chest tightened. She understood that feeling, the longing for connection, for someone who truly saw you. She realized that Alex wasn't asking for anything physical. He was sharing an emotional truth, a vulnerability she couldn't ignore. After breakfast, they moved to the living room to clean up, and the rain had started again outside, soft tapping on the windows. Emily found herself laughing more freely, talking more openly. Alex was a good listener, never judgmental, always interested. And in turn, Emily found herself revealing little things she hadn't told Daniel in years, memories from college. Quiet regrets, small fears. Alex didn't react with shock or surprise. He just listened, nodded, and shared his own stories. There was an honesty between them, a deep emotional exchange that left her feeling lighter and more alive than she had in a long time. "Do you ever feel like life is moving too fast?" Emily asked suddenly, "like everyone is chasing something and you're just standing still, trying to keep up?" Alex nodded, his eyes thoughtful. "All the time. I thought I was okay with who I was, but being here, seeing you, I realize there's more I want. Not just excitement or adventure, but connection. Real connection." Emily felt a flutter in her chest. The words were innocent, clean, yet charged with emotion. It was a connection of hearts, not bodies, and it scared her, thrilled her, and pulled her in all at once. Over the next few hours, they sat together in the living room, sipping tea and talking about dreams. Alex shared his ambitions to travel more, to write, to create. Emily encouraged him, sharing advice and ideas. The emotional closeness was growing, and Emily realized this was what Alex had meant with his wish. Not a romantic affair, but a chance to feel seen, guided, and appreciated in a world that often felt cold and busy. Later, in the late afternoon, they went for a walk around the neighborhood. The rain had stopped, leaving a fresh, earthy smell in the air. Alex walked beside Emily, matching her pace, occasionally brushing hands accidentally on purpose. They talked about small things, then about deeper things, memories, heartbreaks, hopes, regrets. Every word, every glance built a bridge between them, a delicate, emotional intimacy that left Emily feeling both vulnerable and exhilarated. "You've changed me," Alex said suddenly as they stopped by a small park bench. "Not in a romantic way. At least, I don't think so. But you've reminded me that it's okay to feel deeply, to want more than the ordinary." Emily smiled, feeling tears prick her eyes. "I didn't realize I could have this kind of effect on someone," she admitted. "It's strange, emotional, intense, and I feel like I'm learning more about myself than I have in years." Alex reached for her hand lightly, hesitantly. Emily didn't pull away. It wasn't about romance. Not in the traditional sense. It was about empathy, care, and understanding. A bond that was emotional, intimate, but entirely clean. It was the kind of closeness that could change a person, make them braver, more compassionate, more willing to open their heart to life. The sun began to set, painting the sky in golds and pinks. Emily and Alex returned to the house, and Daniel arrived shortly after, tired but cheerful. Emily felt a pang of guilt, though she knew she hadn't crossed any boundaries. She realized that what Alex had asked for, emotional connection, guidance, honesty, wasn't wrong, and it wasn't betrayal. It was a lesson in human vulnerability, a reminder that hearts could connect in unexpected ways. That evening, they sat in the living room, the three of them chatting casually. Emily noticed the subtle changes in Alex. He seemed lighter, more confident, more alive. He laughed more easily, spoke more openly, and carried himself differently. And she realized that part of her own growth had come from simply listening, caring, and allowing herself to engage emotionally without judgment or fear. When Daniel went to bed that night, Emily sat quietly on the couch, reflecting on the day. Alex's presence had stirred her emotions, yes, but it had also reminded her of the strength of her own heart. She could love Daniel fully, and yet still recognize the human need for emotional connection, for empathy, for honesty. That realization felt freeing, like a weight lifted from her chest. Emily didn't know what the coming days would bring. Alex's wish had been surprising, even shocking, but it had also been pure in its intention. It wasn't about desire or crossing lines. It was about understanding, growth, and connection. And she realized that some of the most meaningful bonds weren't romantic at all. They were emotional, transformative, and lasting in ways that could shape lives forever. As she went to bed, Emily felt a mixture of anticipation and calm. She knew the weekend was far from over, and that Alex's presence would continue to challenge and teach her. But she also knew that this experience, this honest, heartfelt wish, was something she would never forget. A single confession had the power to open doors, to awaken hearts, and to remind people that life, connection, and love existed in many forms, not all of them romantic, yet all of them meaningful. And as the house grew quiet, Emily understood that some wishes were never about changing the world, they were about changing hearts, starting with her own. The next morning, Emily woke to the sound of birds chirping outside the window. The sunlight streamed through the curtains, painting the bedroom in soft gold. She lay for a moment thinking about the quiet intensity of the previous day. Alex's presence lingered in her mind, not in a dangerous way. Not as a threat to her marriage, but as a reminder that human emotions could be unexpectedly deep and complicated. She loved Daniel, yes, but Alex had stirred something else in her. Something she hadn't realized she had been missing. Raw, honest connection. By mid-morning, Alex was already in the kitchen, brewing coffee with his usual easy charm. Emily joined him, and the air between them felt lighter, warmer, like a friendship that had unexpectedly grown into something meaningful. He smiled at her, and she smiled back, though there was a subtle awareness in her heart. Thought this connection was extraordinary. "I've been thinking about what I told you," Alex said, his tone hesitant but steady. "About my wish. I think I understand it better now. It wasn't just about wanting to feel something. It was about wanting to grow, to see life differently, and being around using how you care for people, how you make life feel brighter. I realized that I needed guidance, someone to show me how to connect emotionally." Emily nodded slowly. She felt a rush of pride, concern, and tenderness all at once. "Alex, I understand. I think sometimes we confuse longing with need. We think we want something specific, but really we're searching for understanding, for validation, for connection." Alex looked at her, his eyes soft. "Exactly. That's what I mean. And I feel like I can trust you to help me, even if it's just by being yourself, by showing me how to feel without judgment." Emily felt her chest tighten. She realized that this was the core of Alex's wish, not romance, not adventure, but emotional honesty, mentorship, and deep human connection. And she was willing to give that, because she saw the potential in him, in his heart, and in the lessons they could teach each other. They spent the morning together, not talking about trivial things, but sharing experiences, memories, and insights. Alex spoke about his childhood dreams, the things he had feared pursuing, and the moments he had felt invisible. Emily listened, encouraged, and shared her own experiences in return. She told him about her first love, her struggles with self-doubt, and the ways she had learned to stay strong through life's challenges. Each story, each word built a bridge between them, a bond that was entirely emotional, yet intensely intimate. At lunch, they walked through the small garden behind the house. The leaves had started to turn, creating a golden carpet beneath their feet. Alex paused and looked at Emily, the sunlight highlighting the soft determination in her eyes. "You've changed me already," he said quietly. "Not in a dramatic way, but I feel alive. I feel like I can face things I've avoided for years, and I have you to thank for that." Emily smiled, feeling warmth in her chest. "It's not just me," she said. "It's the willingness to open yourself up, to be honest. That's what makes connection possible. And you've done that beautifully." The afternoon passed in a mix of quiet reflection and laughter. They discussed books, movies, and even shared small secrets that made them both laugh. Emily felt an emotional freedom she hadn't experienced in a long time. Daniel loved her, cared for her, and was her partner in life, but Alex had reminded her that human connections could take many forms. Some were romantic, yes, but some were purely emotional, teaching resilience, empathy, and self-discovery. By evening, the house was quiet again. Daniel had gone to his study to catch up on work, leaving Emily and Alex alone in the living room. They sat on the couch, sipping tea, and the atmosphere was gentle, calm, yet charged with unspoken understanding. Alex looked at Emily with a mixture of gratitude and curiosity. "I think I finally get it," he said softly. "This wish of mine. It wasn't about changing my life in a big dramatic way. It was about learning to feel fully, to connect, to care, without expecting something in return. And you helped me see that." Emily's eyes softened. She realized that Alex's wish was never meant to cross boundaries. It was a desire for growth, a longing to feel human emotions deeply, and she had played a role in nurturing that. "I'm glad," she said. "It's a gift to witness someone opening their heart. And you've done it beautifully. Just by being honest, by letting yourself feel, you've changed the way I see life too." Alex reached out, placing his hand lightly on hers. The touch was tender, reassuring, and completely innocent. It was an emotional affirmation of the bond they had formed, a silent acknowledgement of trust, respect, and vulnerability. Emily did not pull away because she knew that this connection was healthy, transformative, and entirely appropriate. The night deepened, and the three of them had dinner together, including Daniel, who remained blissfully unaware of the full extent of the emotional depths between Emily and Alex. But Emily didn't feel guilt. There was no betrayal, no secret romance, only the shared experience of two people connecting in ways that were profound and meaningful. After dinner, Alex helped Emily clear the dishes. They moved in unspoken coordination, familiar gestures that reflected the ease of their bond. Alex paused and looked at Emily, a thoughtful expression on his face. "You've given me a gift," he said quietly. "The courage to feel, the courage to open up. I don't think I could have done this alone." Emily smiled softly. "That's what friends do," she said. "Sometimes the most important gifts aren't physical or dramatic. They're emotional. They're about learning to see, to listen, to be present." As the house grew quiet and Daniel retired to his study, Emily and Alex lingered in the living room reflecting on the day. The emotional connection between them was no longer awkward or tentative. It was comfortable, nurturing, and deeply human. Emily understood that this was what Alex had wanted all along, not romance, not temptation, but understanding, guidance, and the courage to open his heart. Before bed, Emily found herself alone in her room, thinking about the day. Alex had shared more than she had expected, and she had listened, supported, and encouraged him without crossing any lines. She felt proud of the way she had handled the situation, and at the same time, she felt the thrill of emotional intimacy, something that had been missing in her life. Even in the comfort of her marriage, she realized that some wishes, even shocking ones, were not about breaking rules or creating drama. They were about human growth, the discovery of emotional strength, and the courage to embrace vulnerability. Alex's wish had been surprising, even a little unsettling at first, but it had led to something beautiful, a deep, honest connection that changed both of them. Emily knew that the days ahead would bring more challenges, more questions, and more moments of introspection. But she also knew that she could face them, guided by empathy, understanding, and the trust that had formed between her and Alex. His wish had been fulfilled not in a dramatic, life-altering way, but in the quiet, transformative way of hearts opening to one another. As she turned off the lights and lay in bed, Emily felt a mixture of calm and anticipation. The emotional journey was far from over. Alex's presence had changed her perspective, reminded her of the importance of honesty, connection, and emotional courage. And though nothing inappropriate had occurred, something profound had shifted in her heart. She understood now that human bonds could teach lessons more powerful than any romantic experience, more transformative than any adventure. And as she drifted to sleep, Emily felt a quiet gratitude for Alex, for his honesty, and for the unexpected lessons of his wish. She knew that life was richer, more complex, and more beautiful than she had realized, and that some wishes, though shocking at first, could bring the deepest growth of all. The weekend was drawing to a close, and Emily could feel a quiet shift in the air. Alex had changed since his arrival. His restlessness had softened, replaced by a calm confidence that seemed to radiate from him. He laughed more easily, spoke more openly, and carried himself with a sense of purpose she hadn't seen before. Emily recognized that this transformation wasn't the result of anything dramatic or romantic. It was the result of emotional honesty, guidance, and the courage to connect deeply. That morning, Emily and Alex found themselves alone in the kitchen again, preparing breakfast. The sunlight poured through the window, highlighting the golden streaks in Alex's hair, the easy way he moved around the space, and the subtle warmth in his smile. "I can't believe how much lighter I feel," Alex said, breaking the quiet. "Not just happy, but like I finally understand myself a little better. And it's all because of you." Emily felt a rush of emotion. "Alex, you've done the work yourself," she said. "I only helped you see it. You trusted yourself enough to be honest, to open your heart. That's not easy. Most people never get that far." He nodded, smiling softly. "I know, and that's why I'm grateful. You didn't push me or judge me. You just guided me, and that made all the difference. I think I understand now what my wish really meant." Emily was curious. "And what was that?" "To feel alive in a way that matters," Alex said quietly. "To connect without fear, without expectation, without pretending. You reminded me that connection isn't always romantic. It's about honesty, empathy, and being present. That's more powerful than anything I've chased before." The room was quiet, filled with the soft hum of morning life. Emily felt a gentle pride and relief. Alex had grown, yes, but she had also learned something valuable: that emotional intimacy. Honesty and trust could transform hearts in ways nothing else could. It was a lesson in patience, compassion, and the quiet power of caring. Later that afternoon, Daniel returned from his hike, energetic and cheerful. Emily and Alex greeted him warmly. The three of them spent the afternoon in casual conversation, enjoying each other's company. Emily noticed the subtle changes in Alex's demeanor. He was more present, more attentive, and yet he carried himself in a way that made the bond they had formed entirely invisible to Daniel. It wasn't about secrecy, it was about the natural, private growth of the heart. Something Emily realized was just as important as visible accomplishments. After lunch, they decided to take a walk in the nearby park. The leaves had begun to turn, painting the world in hues of gold, orange, and red. Emily walked between Daniel and Alex, noticing how her heart felt calm yet alive. Alex walked beside her for a moment, leaning slightly closer, and whispered, "Thank you, Emily, for everything. I don't think I could have done this without you." Emily smiled softly, feeling a warmth that was neither romantic nor improper, but deeply human. "You had to want it yourself," she said. "I only helped you see the way." As they strolled through the park, Emily thought about how Alex's wish had evolved. What had seemed like a shocking confession at first had become a profound lesson in connection, empathy, and understanding. She realized that some wishes were never about selfish desires. They were about opening hearts, helping people grow, and teaching them how to appreciate the beauty in everyday life. That evening, they returned home and settled in the living room. Daniel read quietly. Alex leaned back with a relaxed smile. And Emily felt a sense of peace she hadn't known she would feel at the start of the weekend. She glanced at Alex and noticed the light in his eyes, a spark of confidence and joy. It was subtle, but unmistakably reflection of the journey he had undertaken, the lessons he had learned, and the emotional honesty he had embraced. "You've grown so much this weekend," Emily said softly. "It's inspiring to see." Alex looked at her with a quiet gratitude. "You've helped me see myself differently. And not just you've reminded me how meaningful it is to truly connect with others, to be honest about feelings, and to value those bonds. That's something I'll carry with me forever." Emily felt her heart swell. It wasn't pride or arrogance, just recognition of the beauty in human growth. Alex's wish had been fulfilled in the most subtle, transformative way possible. It had not broken any boundaries, had not created conflict, but had instead created understanding, emotional depth, and lasting personal change later. As Daniel worked in the study, Emily and Alex cleaned up the kitchen together. Their conversation was easy, natural, filled with laughter and soft insights. It was a companionship that was entirely clean yet intensely emotional. A bond that emphasized trust, care, and human connection above all else. Emily realized that these moments, these quiet lessons, were sometimes more valuable than dramatic adventures or grand gestures. As night fell, Emily went to her room, reflecting on the weekend. Alex's wish had been surprising. Yes, but it had brought growth for both of them. She felt gratitude for the experience, for the emotional honesty they had shared, and for the deep platonic intimacy that had formed. It was a reminder that life was richer when hearts were open, when emotions were acknowledged, when people trusted one another enough to be honest. The next morning, Alex prepared to leave. Emily felt a small pang of sadness, though it was not guilt or regret. It was simply the natural feeling of parting from someone who had profoundly affected her life, even without romance or drama. He hugged her briefly, lightly, and she felt the reassurance of trust, care, and mutual respect. "Thank you, Emily," Alex said quietly. "I feel like I found a part of myself I didn't know was missing. I'll never forget this weekend or what you've helped me discover." Emily smiled softly, tears threatening to spill. "I'll never forget it either," she replied. "You've grown so much, Alex, and I'm grateful to have been part of that journey." As Alex left, Emily watched him go, feeling a mixture of pride, warmth, and quiet awe. Her heart was full, not from romance or passion, but from understanding, growth, and the beauty of human connection. She realized that some wishes were never about changing the world, they were about changing hearts, starting with her own. Emily returned inside and found Daniel in the living room. He smiled at her warmly, and she felt the familiar comfort of their life together. Yet something inside her had shifted, quietly but profoundly. She had learned that emotional bonds could be transformative, that honesty and connection were gifts in themselves, and that some of the most meaningful experiences in life were subtle, clean, and deeply human. Sitting down beside Daniel, Emily took his hand and smiled. The weekend had been unexpected, emotional, and enlightening. She knew now that life was richer than she had realized, that some wishes could change hearts without causing chaos, and that human connection, honest, caring, empathetic connection was one of the greatest gifts of all. And as she looked out the window at the golden autumn light, Emily felt a calm certainty. Alex's wish had been fulfilled. Hearts had opened, lessons had been learned. And she understood more clearly than ever that growth, empathy, and trust were the true treasures of life. She closed her eyes, feeling gratitude, peace, and a quiet joy that would stay with her long after the weekend ended.